Evening. Um, so, wanted to take some time this evening just to reflect on this topic of shared knowledge and shared value or values, but a little bit of a distinction between those two. But um, and I'll explain what I mean by that later. But why don't we begin just as usual with a bit of meditation to settle our minds and to build our mind into a clear, open space in which we can receive teachings. So we begin, as usual, just by finding a comfortable position, this magic balance of having a spine that is relaxed but straight. Some balance of strength and relaxation. We take a deep breath in and out. And again, breathing, just inviting ourselves to relax. Then with a breath, just asking ourselves what is important now. And then we continue to breathe with an increasing awareness of our own body and the feelings in our body. Every breath and expansion and contraction, chance to let go of a little bit more tension, chance to steady our mind, keep ourselves to become more quiet internally. And we can ask ourselves, where do we feel our breathing? Where in our body? And perhaps everywhere. So just notice, become aware of this sensation. We normally have a very superficial view of our own body, mostly ignoring it. We can recognize our body as a miracle, a source on which we depend, that every breath, an incredible series of miracles that allow us to sustain some kind of existence. And we just notice the difference between our concept of ourself, just this concept, this generic image of ourself, and then the complexity of our body, of our feelings, our emotions, the sort of infinite depth of our own mind and body, all hidden from view, all just not appearing as we go about our daily business. We pause to just develop some reverence and respect for this body and mind that we really don't even know. We don't even have conscious awareness of what makes us up for the most part. Our sense that we know ourselves, we know who we are, is just some arrogance. We don't know how we actually think, what it takes to generate a memory. We don't know how we breathe, how our blood circulates. So we can just be humble, full of awe, wonder, gratitude, that somehow this body and mind are holding together, functioning. We can imagine ourselves in a beautiful, peaceful, uplifting environment, and around us, we imagine all of the people who have helped us get to the place we are right now. Our parents, friends, colleagues, partners, neighbors. But rather than just thinking of them as in the normal way, we imagine that they're all peaceful, happy, smiling, and delighted to be engaging in meditation along with us. We control how these people appear in our imagination. We control whether they have a negative effect on our state of mind or a positive effect. And so we generate a feeling of gratitude for the ways that they have directly or indirectly helped us. Just bringing to mind at least one person who's helped us, triggering a warmth in our heart, a gratitude. And we develop a wish to repay the kindness of these other people by radiating peace, happiness, influencing all of these people into a state of peace along with us. And with this good motivation, we can develop a wish to listen, contemplate carefully the teachings so that we can take them to heart and change our way of interacting with others. And then with this good motivation, we can open our eyes and rise from our meditation. So I wanted to speak briefly on this topic of shared knowledge and shared value, inspired by two learnings I've had this week. One insight that is, as are most of my insights, blindingly obvious in retrospect. I think perhaps blindingly obvious to a lot of people, but that's the way learning goes. Very, very useful for me. There is and I'm forgetting now if I mentioned this in the previous session. I don't believe I did, but obviously I'll use my forgetfulness as a cue to reiterate. But there's a thinker named Adam Grant. Adam Grant's a professor of psychology at University of Pennsylvania, young guy, multi-time best-selling author, nice guy. He's like a professor of positive psychology, mostly, or positive guy, mostly focused on positive psychology. And one of the books he's written recently is called Give and Take. And he's given a TED talk to summarize the same topic. But the particular insight that I gained from the essence of his message and teaching, and I've not read the book, I've not even listened to the whole talk, just some articles, but my tendency throughout my life has been to think about concern for self and concern for others as being a one-dimensional spectrum, single dimension. Are you more concerned for self? Or are you more concerned for others? And everybody falls somewhere in that direction. So, for example, in his word terminology, are you a giver focused on benefiting others, or are you a taker focused on benefiting yourself? And my dad, for example, was a incredibly generous person, and I'd say I credit him as the main influence. And being born in a fortunate time where we weren't having to fear for our lives, fear for our hunger, and so forth. So I grew up under that influence with the ethics, the ethical sense that I should be a giver, and I've really tried to emphasize that and concern for others instead of concern for self. Well, in the same way, we can think of the difference between a nonprofit organization and a for-profit organization. So again, that's a binary distinction between companies. Are you a nonprofit organization focused on giving, benefiting others primarily? Are you a for-profit organization primarily focused on profit? You're for-profit. For whom? Well, for yourself and the other investors and so forth. It's a very binary. And Adam Grant just did a very simple thing, which is he said, think of it as two-dimensional. How much are you concerned for others? Do you care about them, or do you specifically not care about them? But how much do you care about yourself on another axis? Do you care about yourself, or do you really not care about yourself? So based on that, you can be in a situation where you really care about others and you also care about yourself. Or you don't care about others and you don't care about yourself. It sounds like a anyway, the way he aligned it is not so much not caring about yourself, but it's, are you agreeable Are you disagreeable, and are you a giver or a taker? So that's the quadrant. So in the upper right, well, so agreeable or disagreeable, or givers or takers. I've explained giving and taking. Agreeable, disagreeable. Do you have a tendency to go along with other people's wishes and views? You're agreeable. Or do you dissent? And so that's a little bit different from the way I'd framed it originally in terms of sense of concern for self, or not. So agreeable versus disagreeable. And there's a tendency, if you want to be a giver, to also think your job is to be agreeable, just to go along with others. And one of the consequences of that is you can be so agreeable and so generous to others that you burn yourself out. And so the rates of burnout in the nonprofit sector are extraordinarily high, like 40% of people feel like they're on the edge of burnout, according to some reports in the nonprofit sector. Burnout rate of executive leadership in nonprofits is even higher than your average people. And then burnout rate for example, people who are, like underrepresented minorities, especially if you're working on social justice causes. And so if it's just adding layers and layers of stress to that. And so the burnout rate's very, very high. Whereas the idea of being a disagreeable giver, so you have a genuine motivation to benefit others, but you're not necessarily feeling compelled to always agree because you value, for example, your own opinion, your own understanding of things. You don't completely discount your own understanding of things, and you also don't completely discount what you yourself value. So you might value your time, your health, money, whatever. You might have a view that is totally different from the point of view of others. Now, if you're just super agreeable, you might not only, well, if you're super agreeable, one of the ways that we can do that is to avoid conflict with others, to try to value others, to try to show them respect and so forth, is we deflate the importance of our own ideas and our own values and minimize those. And if you do that enough, then you just go along with others. And definitely you can put yourself at risk of burnout. And I think in retrospect, having thought about it a lot, that's what happened to my life as a monk. I just burned myself out. And that's such a nice, simple, clear explanation that I think everybody can understand. I burned out. I have very sincere, genuine wish to be like the best monk ever, very agreeable, but a little bit too agreeable. Didn't take care of the inner things that I needed to take care of in terms of my own mental peace and spiritual life and so forth. So I burned myself out. But it's funny. Seems like it's a heroic thing or a martyr-ish thing. So Adam Grant's suggestion was that some of the most useful, valuable employees, and an area that we should strive to build strength, is being a disagreeable giver. So you have good motivation. We want to give, we want to benefit others, but we are disagreeable, not disagreeable just to be a pain in the butt, because that wouldn't really be a giver. If you're disagreeable just because you like that look on people's face, that expression of shock, it's not a very good motivation. It's not actually a giver motivation, but a disagreeable in the sense that you value your own opinions and your own values enough that it sometimes puts you into conflict with other people's points of view and other people's values. You're not seeking conflict, but you're not afraid of conflict. And there's a lot of similar things. For example, it's Jim Collins. There's a book on culture Patrick Lencioni, the book on culture, The Advantage, talks about the importance of dissent. And I think a lot of other business books talk about that, the importance of healthy dissent. And so you can only have healthy dissent if you have enough respect for your own opinions and values. And the thing is that our own opinions are not actually our own opinions. And typically they're internalized from other things we've read and sources and past experience. And so none of them really are opinions anyway. It's really, we're just a custodian, temporary custodian of a certain body of knowledge, and temporary custodian of a certain set of values, including, some awareness of how tired we are, how much energy we have, some awareness, our finances, whatever. There are things that we know and value. They're not really even ours. I mean, we die very quickly, like days, weeks, hours, months, years, decades. Soon we'll all be dead, and all the knowledge gone, our bodies gone, all the stuff we're working for gone. But at least temporarily, we are the custodians of certain resources, and we have an opportunity to benefit friends, family, society, to sustain ourself in such a way that we can benefit others in different ways, and to have respect for this collection that we are right now, whatever this collection is, something physical, some thoughts, some feelings, and so forth, some mind. Having respect for that, as I guided in the meditation, partly because it's a miracle, right? Like, we don't even know who this person is. We don't even really know what goes on deep in our brain and our body. It's just beyond conception. We need a reverence. We need a profound respect, extreme respect, reverence for this that is inside of us. We need a reverence as well for others. And so combining that, you can become a disagreeable giver in the sense that you're not afraid of conflict. And so having a strength of mind that both seeks a higher ground and seeks a higher state for ourselves, seeks a higher state for others. So this is my goal now, is to try to internalize this more deeply, and I'd encourage you to contemplate this and see if it's relevant to your thinking as well, and something you want to internalize through meditation. So that was one insight. The other insight was on this topic of knowledge management. This subject that someone described to me today as sometimes perceived as a dusty old subject of knowledge management that's sort of come in and out of favor and in and out of the spotlight over the last few decades in organizations. Knowledge management literally means just how well is the organization managing its collective knowledge. So what is collective knowledge? Collective knowledge is shared knowledge shared between people, as well as the ability to exchange knowledge with one another. So it's individual knowledge, shared knowledge, the exchange of knowledge, the systems for exchanging knowledge between people inside an organization, with people outside the organization. There are people who are specialists in knowledge management. I referred to them today as they're cousins to librarians. Librarians, like the historical knowledge managers for a town, right? They're just sort of custodians of the library. They're check books in, receive books, make sure that the library is well maintained. Still an important function, but these days the flow of information is intense, right? And the flow of misinformation can be intense. The demand for information can be urgent. Confusion can be intense. Lack of alignment between people, especially in a digital society, it's quite a struggle. So I had a chance to talk to someone who's a long-term specialist, a guy named Malcolm Ryder, who's a long-term specialist in knowledge management. And it really just blew my mind, like on a bunch of levels, and took the conversation to a much deeper level than I had anticipated, because he was basically focused on, he basically said, if you really want to understand how a group of people, for example, organize knowledge and organize information, there's systems like taking a document and tagging it so that other people can find it, or why would people invest time in creating some information that someone else can consume? And you begin to realize that to understand how knowledge flows, you need to understand all of the different personas that are involved, the people and how they see themselves, what they see as being of value. Why would they be motivated to take the time to record their own knowledge, to share it with somebody else? Why would you be motivated to take the time to learn something? Um, and that it takes time to, for example, get to know another person and what's their motivation, what are the things that they know about that you might ask them about, and how can you build a relationship with another person such that you feel comfortable asking them questions or sharing your own knowledge with them. Um, and that if you actually want to do a proper job of knowledge management in an organization, you really need to begin to dig in deeply to understand what are the different jobs that people are striving to accomplish in their work. Why is that important to them? How do they see themselves? What is what could motivate them to want to share? What can motivate someone to want to learn? And begin to realize that it cuts almost to the root of everything that we are, right? We're just a collection of knowledge and values. We've got a body and a mind that it can host this, but primarily a collection of knowledge, values, and intentions that lead to actions. So how can you create these actions of sharing knowledge? It's only by helping people to value that activity of giving and receiving knowledge. And that then comes from your understanding of who you are, where you fit in, who are other people, are they also important? Rather than seeing knowledge management as just installing a tool like a wiki or something, a corporate knowledge base, those efforts, there are many such efforts, but none of them really touch the heart of what we're actually doing as individuals. None of them really, just installing a piece of software certainly doesn't begin to touch the heart of why someone would want to use that software, to get access to information. And knowledge management is partly just about helping people to build relationships, and to see where they fit in this broader system of how an organization functions, how it functions to survive, how it functions to benefit customers externally, to feed the members of the organization. So it was a rich conversation. I was very grateful for it. It really just kind of pointed me back in this direction of this whole hidden, this layer hidden beneath the surface. There's a superficial layer of what's happening externally, people's personas and how they present and the artifacts that they create. But then there's this hidden layer of our motivations and understanding, and that if things are not working well on the superficial layer, right, is because there's something not working well on the heart layer, right? There's something on this underlying layer that's a bit off. And that if you really want to make the superficial things thrive, you want to make an organization thrive and individual people happy and healthy and interacting well with each other and satisfying customers and so forth, you long term, you have to understand these hidden layers, and maybe there's some way of making that work through force and coercion and threats and so forth. But I certainly don't have an appetite for that, and I'm optimistic that the path of least resistance is working with the grain of what humans naturally value, which is social connection, learning. Like, humans are naturally curious. Humans naturally value social connection. Humans will naturally give if they have the means to do so, and don't have anything that's obstructing that beneficial wish. So again, it feels like these topics that are of central concern to religions, for example, and families. They're also of central concern, I believe, to organizations as we strive to make sense of this explosion of knowledge and information that we have together as a society. So why don't we conclude just by taking a couple of minutes just to return to our peaceful state of mind, taking another deep breath in and out, and just reflecting that even in this very brief time here, we have perhaps activated new ways of thinking, strengthened new lines of contemplation, new understandings, new motivations. And that these are pathways that are useful not only for ourselves, but we can think we are strengthening lines of thought that can influence our society. We are strengthening lines of thought that are critically important for our society to thrive and be healthy. And we just delight in that thought. And then we can relax our concentration and rise from